I just want to make a quick announcement. We are limited to 12 people in the room. We do not have appointments on the agenda based on the fact that most people said they were coming after the agenda. So the first order of business, we're going to go over the agenda, is going to be the 241 Franklin Street solar project. So if you're not in for that particular project, I think we have 13. I would hopefully ask someone to leave. For the roof, I'm sorry. Just bear with me a second. To begin the meeting, I'm no longer going to be reading the agenda. If the members that are present is Gordon Andrews, Amy Troop, Rick Murray, and Alan Diaz. If anybody has anything that they want to add to the agenda at this point, they can so state. Otherwise, we'll begin with our first discussion. Anybody want to add anything to the agenda? Okay. Mr. DeBona, 241 Franklin Street.
229 Franklin Street, yes.
All right. Okay, 241 is the solar project. Did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I didn't know if no one's here for...
Yeah,
okay.
My name is Ahmed Jamal. I'm the field engineer for this project.
Okay.
I'm representing the CSMG.
Okay. So you actually wrote the letter. I don't know if you received a copy of the letter. Okay. It is a letter, unless you want to read it yourself. They're stating that CS Energy is going to install excuse me one second. We're limited to 12 people. We're actually, so what we're hoping, so that we don't have to adjourn, that we will handle the order of business. So anybody's into that particular discussion. Otherwise, if you don't mind waiting in the hall.
Sure, okay, thank you.
The letter from CNS Energy indicates that they are going to do the project as agreed with 38 white spruce trees, and I'm assuming that if the road is in the wrong place, you're going to move.
Actually, the road is not in the wrong place, but it was built wider than the plan.
Just so that we can hit you. You can take your mask down for 1 minute, just so we can understand you.
The road was not built wrong. It was built wider than the plan, just to provide enough space, enough access for the trucks during project execution. But later on, we built this as per the plan. So currently, we have no problem to plant 38 spruce in that area. I have photos, I can show it to you. Actually, we were open for the fence and for the trees. But why we will not go with the fence, because installing the fence is requiring amendment for the order condition. And that's going to take time, more than 1 month. And we are going to close the project by first week of September, and we don't have time. That's why we will stick to the original plan, to the approved design for the 38 schools.
Okay. Any board members have a question?
Yes, I was wondering, do you have any certification of where the road is? Because last meeting, we motioned that you bring us in where the road was placed to show us that it is as the building, as the site plan stated.
Yeah, actually we have an aspect, and we can send the aspect, currently I don't have it. We have an aspect from our surveyor stating that we build the road as per the plans. Yeah, and I have photos here for the road, I can show it to you.
Okay, so you have photos, but you don't have the as-built with you today?
The aspect, it's not with me now, but we have it, I can send it to you.
Do you have the ability to send it to our email now?
Unfortunately, no. I can't. I don't have it on my phone.
Any questions, sir?
No.
Gordon, any questions?
So what's the location of the road? Is it actually where it's shown on the plan?
Yeah. This is as per the plan.
So there's room for the trees as shown on the plan?
The trees is still not planted, it's gonna be next week.
No, I understand they're not planted, but
Yeah.
the room is there to plant them, the way
Yeah,
they
there is
show
a
on the
room.
plan?
Yeah, we have a, just as I told you, we built it wide up a little bit just to have safer access for the trucks. Before, we built it wider by 2 feet, I think, just to have a safer access for the big trucks. But currently, it's as per the plans. So we have enough room to plan the area exposed.
Yes.
Do we have the site plan that was approved here tonight that we can look at?
It could very well be in one of these folders. While she's looking at that, Mr. DeBona, I don't know if you have any comments, but he's indicated that they're going to build it the way that it is, so I hope that you're okay with that.
So I am okay with that, so I just wanted to clarify a couple things. We had originally discussed the trees the whole time. We were approached after we were told no fence, we put the fence in place of the trees. We said yes, with minor modifications to the fence. The road was clearly in the wrong spot because they now altered the road location to get the trees in. I have a little bit of, I'm just a little annoyed because we went to 2 conservation commission meetings where we were told they had no authority to make any changes to where the road is, and they had nothing to do with the tree plantings that was on the site plan. We went to multiple, this is our 3rd planning meeting for this, and now we're being told, you know, it's already been between conversations and ongoing discussion with Mr. DeBona, it's been resolved. Well, we weren't at that conservation meeting because we were told by conservation and this board that conservation didn't have anything to do with the location of the trees. He meets with conservation and they adjust the location. It's just very confusing as to what board has the authority to make the decision on where the location of the road is, which is what this is boiled down to. So they put the road in the wrong spot. As far as I know, no one came on surveyed the road location where it was. They made adjustments to the road, there's no surveying being done. And now we're being told that yes, it wasn't in the right spot, but take our word for it, now it's in the right spot. We just want to make sure that it's built to specifications. That's all. We'll take the trees, that's fine, no fence, let's just make sure the road is in the right spot. But we still can't get that determination outside of, yeah, now it is. Before it wasn't, but now it was.
Okay.
They never told us before that it wasn't.
Okay. It's my understanding that prior to them getting signed off so that they can turn that project on, an as-built is required. And that's going to be reviewed very meticulously to make sure that they're in 100% compliance. Otherwise, if they're not in compliance, then they're not going to get a green light to turn on. And that's going to include all the trees, and it's going to include whether or not the road is in the right place.
I understand. This has been going on for 6 months now. Trying to right away back, no trees. The last thing they're going to do with the whole project is put the, the buffer, this little planting that was supposed to be blocked. That's from this ongoing project. It's not complete. They want to complete it in 2 weeks, and now it's a rush to get the trees in. Now, we're not in a rush now. The project's over. We'll wait. Let's make sure the road's in the right spot. And believe me, no one wants the project done more than we do.
Yeah, what I think, and I told you, we cannot provide an as-built showing that the road has been built correctly. And why it is not go for fast, as I told you, because it's requiring an amendment for the order of condition, which we cannot wait. We cannot afford this time to wait until we get the order of condition amendment.
That's fine. Trees are fine. Again, my point is, they told us the road was in the right spot, or we made the assumption the road was in the right spot. They would have planted the trees if we didn't come in and say the road's in the wrong spot. Now they make adjustments, again, with no surveying, nothing being done. There's just guys out there, in an excavator, scraping part of the road up.
Are the trees still going the same place they started?
Yeah, which is fine. So they definitely did widen the area. But my point is, when the road wasn't in the right spot to begin with, and they just make the field adjustments, how do they know what they're doing?
You got GPS.
Yeah, the GPS can put it in too, right?
Yeah, like I said, when it comes right down, it'll be won't get this.
If it's not a great spot, though, it's more time, more adjustments, more work, and I'd like to just get it.
But he said they have the as-built, so if the as-bilt's showing it's in the right place, then it must be okay.
Yeah, again, we provide it, so.
Mr.
Well,
Chair,
the as-built should reflect the trees, so just make sure whatever as-built you have is gonna reflect the plans of those
In
trees.
this case, we will make the plant the trees, then we will submit one as. Now we have aspect for the, after we plant the spruce, we will take another aspect and we will submit also down the road.
Okay, that's fine.
yeah, the whole point of the meeting tonight was to have properly say you have the as-built. The
Amy,
whole point of this meeting
excuse me,
is to bring them to show.
Amy, you
that
got
it
your mask
wasn't-
on. Just excuse me a second. Gordon, Amy, just, then 6 feet, just put your mask on. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said the whole point of this meeting was to bring everybody in here and have the as-built. It says it has the as-built, but we don't have it in front of us. And that was the point of the meeting, was to find out is the road in the right place or not. I mean, was that was that information requested of him to bring it here? Because that was the whole point.
I don't recall asking them to have the as-built come in today. I
That's what
think
we had in our discussion.
We were talking about, but you usually don't get an as-built for the project completed.
No, no, I understand.
It seems like a lot to ask to get an as-built for a road.
But he says he has it.
But he says he has it, so that's great.
Okay.
Too bad he didn't bring it. But he said he sent it to us.
The point was to bring something tonight so we could have moved on.
Right, right.
So now we can't move on because we don't know. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Well-
I mean, we have the two parties here, but we have nothing to do here.
Okay, but you're all set with them planting the trees, and you're gonna plant the trees?
Yes.
Okay, and you're gonna provide us with an as-built, okay? So that's
The road and for the trees.
with road and the trees, and that's prior to that project moving forward or turning the power on?
Yeah.
Is there an understanding of where the trees are going? I mean, are we all?
That's up to the site, he has to follow the site plan. So if the site plan, I don't know if it's got dimensions, because all I've seen is the smaller version. They should be reasonably close to where they're gonna put it in.
Is there a distance off the property line? That was the big deal. It looks like they're gonna make the tree directly on the property line, so.
That I don't know. That I don't know. All I received was a small version of the plan with no scale on it, so it's very difficult to
Well,
tell.
we have the site plan right there that shows it.
How far the trees are for a while. Usually beyond their property, usually the fence should go a foot onto your property.
Right,
It's your fence.
A 5-foot wide tree, I mean, it's gonna be
Yeah, they tend to grow a little too
Right.
all the time.
Where was that good? There.
I mean,
You want Mr. Pariah to show? Wait, they're his plans, you want him to pick out where the trees are? Oh, do you know where they are?
Yeah, on page 10 of one, it's like, so yeah.
It's what's the scale here? An inch is 50 feet, so I mean, on this, it looks like it's right on the property line, but.
50 scale is really.
Yeah.
It's very, very small. So they could be, at 50 scale, if it's just a small amount, it could be 2 to 3 feet off the
Right,
line.
right.
So-
But would we, how do we make that decision? I mean.
They have to make that
they make
decision,
that decision.
okay? And their as-built will have to match up to that to some reasonable degree. You know, we're not talking about
So
inches, you know, if it's a foot off, it's not a big
There's
deal.
gonna be a problem with the tree itself, not just the base of it, the branches are out over the lot line, is that gonna be an issue, or? how's
An
that
issue
work?
to who? You know, I mean, I don't know.
Well-
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, we're playing the screening, or they're playing the screening, I didn't expect it to be on my property, the screening, so. I understand they're limited in space, but I would expect that to be,
Well, you'll be there when they're planting, right, so.
So his concern is to make sure that if you've got a white spruce that's gonna, you know, it's probably gonna be a 4 or 5 inch caliper now. I'm not sure, I haven't read the plans, so that when it grows, that the trees are gonna remain on your side. So if you're gonna have to make an adjustment, if you expect them to have a 3-foot base.
From our side, from our properties.
Correct. Anything else, gentlemen?
will his as-built show the allocation though? Do we, again, we waited 6 months, I understand we want to wrap the project up. This is the 5th meeting, so if we had started this early and then someone had showed up, we could have been long done with this.
Can we get an as-built that shows that it is 3, 4, 5 feet off the property line? The spacing
It's
between-
when they do the as-built. See, right now, they have, I'm sure they got a proposed plan. I've never looked at it, so they got a proposed plan. The as-built is gonna have to be reasonably close.
And who decides that? The board?
Yes, I guess. Conservation will take a look at it.
Conservation doesn't have any jurisdiction over site.
And then the site plan will look at that to make sure that it's done okay. With that project, I don't know if they retained any money for a review engineer. I'm not sure. Project that size, they probably should have had retained someone to review the plans. So,
I'm
Amy?
gonna refer back to the motion that we said that we wanted some sort of proof. We never said as-built in a motion, so that our abutters would be able to see what was going on without making a decision that's haphazard. So again, I want to make a motion that this motion gets continued to the next meeting in September, so that our abutters are assured of what they're agreeing to. Because this site plan has jurisdiction, and they're obviously not aware of what's gonna happen, and I don't hear that anybody in this room is.
okay. So we have a motion on the floor. What's your motion?
My motion is to, actually, I just want to make this motion that we made at our last meeting unanimously happen at our next meeting.
What's the motion you're making?
The motion from the last meeting in our minutes stated that they would come with proof of where the road was so that our abutters could see it and make a decision, and we still don't have that for them, and he's obviously a little distraught on making a decision without it. And I am too.
So we have a motion on the floor to, just clarify this.
I'm just
You want a
making
motion-
sure
you have
that-
a motion on the floor that you want someone to come in, someone from where? From CNS Energy?
With the proof of where the road is, like we asked in the last meeting by motion unanimously. So I don't need a motion because I am just exercising the motion that we have.
Okay, you need a motion, so.
We don't, because we had a unanimous motion the last meeting and it's still not.
You need a motion. That motion was carried to make sure that they came. So if you're gonna bring a motion forward to have them move.
We didn't, the motion isn't completed yet because they didn't come in with proof of where the road was, and that was the unanimous motion, so we don't need a motion.
So.
We just need
you take a
action.
motion or you don't have a motion?
We need action on the motion that has already been voted.
All right. Anything else, gentlemen?
I would suggest that if they're going to come back and tell us where the trees are going to get planted from the lot line, so the abutters understand what that is.
Absolutely.
Is that a motion? I don't, you know, I
If you
think.
want a motion, I'll make a motion.
Yeah, I, you know.
I don't think we-
my-
I don't-
my inclination,
Continue this to
go
the
ahead.
next meeting, you know.
That's what I would say. We need the motion that was already made to be continued.
So the tree's gonna be planted by the next meeting anyway, right?
No, because we're gonna need this to be decided beforehand.
Submitted before.
So by the next meeting, the trees will be planted, so you can bring an as-built with the trees in the road?
Yeah.
Can you provide us at our next meeting with some sort of proof as to where the trees are
I'll
going to
bring the asset with me, I'll bring the road and.
be? Okay, all right. So, I don't know that we need a motion to continue. You're agreeing that you're going to come in next week, the next meeting? Okay.
Next week?
Then our next meeting, which I believe is September 3rd.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody okay with that?
So-
You'll be
so
in on
just to be-
September 3rd. Is everybody okay with that, or you're not okay with it?
No, just to be clear, I don't think that anything should happen until our abutter has approved what has happened, because the motion said that he needed to come in with proof of where the road was, and that is not what is occurring.
So,
And so we need to not have the trees planted, we need to make sure that the abutter is okay with it.
that's totally inappropriate. We don't control that construction.
We
site.
actually do, it's a
So-
site plan.
Okay, so, if you want to make a motion, you can make a motion. I'm going to rule it out of order. If you're going to agree to come in next week, that's what you're going to do. You're just not going to come in next week and say, okay, we're going to plant the trees here, here, and here. The trees should be planted. You're going to bring us an as-built to certify what you're telling us. Yeah, this, we
That's an
can't- we're not gonna
injustice.
get involved with trying to control the time sequence on the project.
This is a site plan, and then we're asked to do something, and they haven't done it.
And basically what you're saying is you don't want them to do it.
Until we verify that everything is correct.
I don't believe that's our position, but I'll take any comments from the board.
It was our unanimous decision from the last meeting.
Any other comments?
No, I mean, it's,
Yes, sir. Just identify yourself.
Mr. DeBonne Senior,
Senior, okay.
the order of conditions that addresses these trees is very specific. It calls for 5-foot diameter trees, 8 foot tall, placed 10 feet apart, 2 rows, 10 feet apart. Anything less than that, I'm not going to accept. So if it's a 5-foot diameter tree, it's got to be a minimum of 2.5 feet off of the property line, correct?
Well, I'd want it further because it's gonna grow, but typically,
10 feet in between the rows and 10 feet in between the trees. If they do that, problem solved. They
Okay.
haven't been able to do that.
okay,
And I
so,
would make one other comment. It would have been nice, this project's been going on for about 6 months, if some of this was addressed at the beginning of the project instead of the last thing out the door. The screening was to protect us. There's excavators, construction trailers, parking, construction men all over our backyard. That was the idea of the screening. Not when that's all done, but while it was in progress. That's
okay.
just my personal opinion.
So it's our understanding you'll be in on the 3rd.
yeah.
Please provide us with the as-built drawing 4 to 5 days prior to the office so that the secretary can get them out to us via email. And then please have a full-size drawing into the office.
Okay.
Okay?
I have a question
Oh, sorry.
for CS Energy. Can you tell me whether or not you have the room for 2.5 feet at least off their lot line, 10 feet between each row and each tree? Do you have that room?
Now, yes, we have.
I'm sorry?
We have, yeah.
So what is that, like 35 feet?
I did not measure exactly, but we have, because now we have the road aspect of the,
Do you think that maybe you could save money and wait and say, make sure that this is gonna be done correctly so you don't have to go dig them out and redo it?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We got that. Looks like we're okay. Next order of business is Miss Dwyer here, Amy Dwyer. She's not. About Mr. Paquette, 1 Pasture Lane. Anybody else here for Pasture Lane? Okay. Sarah Stearns. Usually we have a chair out front, but
I can stand at the table.
you can stand or I'll grab you that chair. You want to rather sit? Okay.
This is not going to be a long presentation.
Okay. So just please introduce yourself to the record and who you represent.
Sure. For the record, Sarah Stearns, Wheels and Thomas, a civil engineering firm in Plymouth, Mass. I spoke with the planning administrator, Joanne, last week about this prospective project. And really, this is just an opening, a very brief introduction to something that will be coming before the board shortly. And so it's really just a informational, very quick presentation. I represent Buds Goods and Provisions. It is a prospective marijuana farm off of River Street. I do have some exhibits that I can hand around if anyone's interested in looking at a conceptual plan. Just background. I did
If you don't
send
mind,
a couple
if you give it to me, I'll pass it on.
Sure. Just keep one. So I did send a couple similar exhibits to Joanne to just share with the concept only. And really, we just wanted to introduce ourselves. We plan to prepare a special permit application for this marijuana establishment in the industrial zone. It's about a 47-acre parcel of land, former agricultural land. So it is devoid of vegetation, it's wide open, I have this other, just before we can just pass it around. But really the red is, the property line there, so this is an area that has been earmarked for this particular type of farm. My client has met with the select board about a year ago, just to talk about coming into the community and setting that up. So, again, very quickly, because I know you have a lot on your agenda, the address is 111 River Street. This is a concept plan, so it could go in the shredder tomorrow and we can start over. But just to give the board a sense of what my client is anticipating for the property, which includes an access off of the existing gravel road off of River Street into a about 15,000 square foot building for processing, limited seasonal staff use, and potentially some greenhouses and in-ground farming. The two green rectangular areas that are in the middle, kind of darker, would be the area that would be planted as kind of the first phase, with the potential build out for the rest of the land in time as budget and regulations allow. So the nice thing about a blank slate is that we can design something that is compliant with the bylaw regulations, and that's our intent. So right now we're just going through the bylaw stipulations and addressing that with our design, making sure we incorporate all of that. We're doing a similar presentation next week with the Conservation Commission. Again, just to kind of lay out that we're avoiding wetland resource areas and respecting buffer zones and that sort of thing as well. My client was planning on being here tonight, and he asked me to apologize to the board. He was looking forward to this, but was detained. So really, that's all I wanted to share with you, and just introduce myself and the project in general. And again, if you have any comments or questions preliminarily, I know you know very little about the project other than this, but I'm happy to be available for that, and I can take any questions or comments tonight and pass them along to the grower, or we can see you when we file our application.
Okay, hold on a second. We'll take any comments from the board. Gordon?
So this is just gonna be a retail?
No retail, just cultivation. So it's just farming.
Okay.
Again, in the ground farming is the goal,
Yeah.
but initially they may set up 4 to 5 coop houses on the site and have a processing center inside the building with containment, stormwater management, all of the applicable regulatory details with the building as well.
And then this is gonna be sold wholesale?
The product would be taken to a different facility to be distributed, whether it's retail or wholesale, from somewhere else. And so this would be really a seasonal use. It's a true farm, it's an agricultural operation, and I'm sure you don't see a lot of ag operations as they're typically exempt from filing special permits or municipal regulations for various things, but because of the product that we're talking about, it's regulated differently, so we will be coming before the municipal boards. So we do anticipate that we will see seasonal work, so very limited winter use. The other thing I just wanted to note that I just remember on the plan is that we are planning to have the septic off-site, just because of the soils on site.
So where would the septic, where would the septic system go off-site?
On the property to the north. We're just showing it now. You can see the lines leading that down to force main.
Okay.
And that would be part of the application. We would show that in detail.
Oh, okay. Is that also, because the only Middleborough line is to the south, right?
That's right. Yeah, the whole thing, the property itself is entirely within Halifax, but the property line is concurrent with
Rick, any questions?
No, sounds good to me.
No, I do have one question. In relationship to the solar field,
Yes.
is this south of the solar field?
It is just south of the solar field. The solar field is to the north. It's not shown on this just because the aerial is a little bit older.
It's south of 105 on River Street.
Okay.
I think the solar field's east of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, the east, yeah, you're correct. It'd be on the east because the north
Oh,
arrow.
this is not on this, sorry.
Okay, yeah, it'd be on
At
the
the top of the page.
Okay, I know you've met with the selectmen, and we haven't seen any plans of the Board of Health as far as the septic system, and I understand that the septic system might be on Wood Street or something like that. At this point, I don't have any other questions. You will have to, once you get through the process with the selectmen, you'll have to file a site plan with this board. And if the board doesn't have any other questions,
I actually, Mr. Chairman, have a procedural question. The bylaw was pretty clear that a special permit would be required for this use. Would a site plan be a combined application, site plan review and special permit?
now, I'm not sure, are you talking about a special permit from the ZBA or special permit from planning?
Well, special permit from, so in the industrial zone for the marijuana establishment, it notes that the planning board is a special permit granting authority.
Okay, so yes, I would combine the site plan with that special permit
Okay,
process.
perfect. We'll plan to do that then. Any other specifics that I should be aware of before we submit our materials?
I was just wondering, is it going to be a fenced facility?
Yes. It's very highly regulated, as I'm sure you know, so they need to comply with cameras, fencing, security, all that. So they're incorporating that into their design.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Good luck with the project.
Thank you very much. Thank
you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. The next order of business is going to be Pine Street North. I had this put on the agenda for a potential open meeting violation. In reviewing the notes, the Pine Street North matter was not on the agenda for our last public hearing, yet we took a vote, which meant that the public wasn't notified. That, I think, we can consider to be a technical violation of the open meeting law. And I think to mitigate any potential complaints, I'm just going to make a statement that we inadvertently took that vote, and it is on the agenda for this week. Okay.
I would like to make a comment about that. I believe that Pine Street North was not brought up by the board. It was brought up by somebody in the audience, so it really can't be an open meeting violation since the board didn't bring it up.
Well, I disagree. The open meeting law is very clear. The public has to be notified. So
But how are we to know
I'm
that-
making a statement just to make sure that no one does file a complaint, and then we're all liable. So, next item on the agenda is Pine Street North, presented by Mr. Andrews. He wanted to discuss the location on the town map, drainage, and construction. And before we get into that, I just want to comment that at our last meeting, we had a conversation, Gordon and I, relative to why it was not on the agenda. And I made a comment that I really wasn't sure, and I'm going to retract that because I did instruct Joanne not to put it on the agenda because it was full. So, having said that, Mr. Andrews.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up the Pine Street North because the town maps don't depict it as it should be. The map, I believe it's a detail A on the maps, shows Pine Street North connecting to Gold Street, which it does not do.
Do you have anything for the board to look at?
I do not.
Okay, all right.
I figured I would bring it up tonight, we'll get the information, and then everybody's aware of what we're looking at, and we can discuss it at the next meeting.
Well, it was my understanding we're going to discuss it tonight, so,
Well, I'm going to discuss it, but we're going to need to get more information. And it will be up to the board to get the information provided to all the members so that we have it next week. And we couldn't discuss it at the last meeting, so we couldn't get that.
okay.
All right?
So your first one is the location?
Yeah,
Okay.
Pine Street North is depicted as connecting to Gold Street. It does not do that.
Okay. And you had a question on drainage and construction.
Correct. There appears to be drainage on Pine Street North, of which there were no plans with the planning board depicting any approval of that drainage and construction.
Okay.
The construction of Pine Street North comes down to an easement and then connects to Gold Street,
Okay.
of which there's signs up there right now that say that this is private property, do not enter, emergency vehicles only, and so that the people that live on Pine Street North do not have legal access over that property. Their legal access would be Gold Street to Bow Street to Pine Street North.
Okay.
And the town map does not depict where that is. There is a plan floating around from the water department showing that there's a water line that now goes down Gold Street and cuts across to Bow Street to go to a lot over there.
Okay.
That plan did not come before the planning board to be okay for improvements on the road.
Okay.
And I think the board should take a look at that and find out more information on the approval of that and why it didn't come to the planning board to be approved.
Okay. So, Mr. Andrews, you're very familiar with the area, obviously. My question to you is, what jurisdiction does the planning board have over a 1888 subdivision plan?
Because those roads were not constructed before we approved our zoning bylaws in this town. So because they were not constructed previous to that, when they are constructed, they come before the board to be approved. And that roadway actually goes into the town of Hanson to make that connection. So that plan should come here. It should also go to the town of Hanson to be looked at as well.
Okay. So what's a zoning bylaw got to do with road drainage?
The acceptance of zoning bylaws and the subdivision control laws that were adopted by this town are what give us the authority over that, under 81E.
So under 81E, you can correct me if I'm wrong, planning board has jurisdiction over proposed ways and subdivision. And you're telling me that the planning board has jurisdiction over...
Private ways as well.
It has private ways, okay, you'll have to establish that, and you're indicating that an 1888 subdivision, that the planning board would have some jurisdiction over previously filed
The
subdivision?
construction of the road.
Okay.
And might I also ask that if you have a conflict of interest in this, should you be discussing this?
I don't have a conflict.
Did you do work
I
on
have-
that?
I don't have any more of a conflict than you having a conflict in the fact that any construction of Gold Street goes into your family's property. So I don't have, do you want me to try to get a legal opinion from ethics? I'll be more than happy to. Okay. Anything else you want to go? Anything else you want to add to this, the location, drainage, and construction?
Yeah, I think the board should look into where the drainage was put in.
Okay. Any comments? No? Rick, any comments? Okay. So, I don't know if we made a motion, or what we'll do, if you want, if you think there's a conflict of interest, I will reach out to ethics, and once I get a decision from ethics, then we can reschedule that.
We could move it to the next meeting, and if there is a problem, then we can still discuss it, can't we?
Fine, we'll put it on for the next meeting. Does anyone in the audience have any comments on this Pine Street North now?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Day. I'm the attorney for Paradise Properties LLC, owner of Pine Street North. This is really so far outside the jurisdiction of the planning board that it's shocking to anyone with any town experience would make an argument to the contrary. I've looked at your town's zoning bylaws. I can tell that, I think everybody here knows, but I'll say for the record, that in March there was a zoning determination of the buildable lot at Pine Street North. Earlier this summer, there was a building permit issued for Pine Street North. The building permit calls for a single-family dwelling, which doesn't, of course, fall anywhere within the scope of 16728 in this particular board's jurisdiction. I would suggest that, from what I understand, that this is sort of a continuing pattern of harassing the property owner, Paradise Properties LLC, and I would suggest inflicting some harm on their property interests as private property owners. If the planning board has a legitimate jurisdictional basis for raising an issue regarding that property, then by all means, they're citizens, this property is owned here in town, they're willing to come before this board and respectfully address those concerns. But I would respectfully suggest that that's not what's happening here. There is no jurisdiction over Pine Street North. There's nothing being brought by anyone to this board with regard to the development of Pine Street North that would warrant any involvement by the planning board. And I think what we know, just a moment ago, we heard from another board member that the last time Pine Street North came up, it came up, quote, because someone from the audience brought it up. Well, Paradise Properties LLC, again, is a property owner. They have 5th Amendment and 14th Amendment rights to their property. They have a right not to be harassed and trying to be embarrassed or intimidated or anything else by any governmental planning authority, including this planning board. So respectfully, I would suggest that at this point, there is no jurisdiction to bring Pine Street North before this board. And on behalf of the owners of Pine Street North, Paradise Properties LLC, I would put the board respectfully upon notice that if it does find its way on the agenda next time, we will take whatever is appropriate in terms of getting it off the agenda or making sure that it doesn't come back on the agenda again. There simply is no jurisdiction at this particular time for this board to exercise over Pine Street North. Thank you.
Amy?
Attorney Day?
Yes.
I wanted to let you know that we did have requests from somebody else on Pine Street North back in May by email asking to be in front of the planning board, and that's how this all came up. So that is why it was on the agenda. And I believe that a letter of an alternative building inspector stated that unless the road was built out, and I have that letter, I can email it to you if you would like. I'll send it to my secretary. But
the letter to Mr. Carmichael?
yes, it needed to be built out in order for it to have a permit.
Okay, we'll talk about that letter for just a moment. Let's assume that that letter's accurate and it has to be built out.
Just hold on 1 second. The board doesn't have, or I don't know what this letter consists of. I don't know that anybody else has, and if you have a copy of the letter, you can just surmise it for us, because she's saying that the road needs to be built out. She's using terminology that I'm not sure she knows what she's saying. So, can you paraphrase that letter so the rest of the board members have some idea as to what she's talking about?
I don't have the letter with me here. She said she has a copy of it. She wants to read it into the record.
I do. I did not bring it with me tonight, but I do have a copy of the letter, and I said that I could forward it to Joanne, and she can share it with everyone.
You're saying they're talking about build out?
Build out the road. The road needed to be made before there was access. It said it in the letter.
Well, the terminology build out, the construction,
I don't have it in front of me, so I'm giving an overview.
All right, continue on, sir.
Well, I think that I have nothing else to add. I thought that she had the letter here. What I was going to suggest is that, again, let's go through that letter and see what in that letter vests this board's jurisdiction over Pine Street North at this particular time.
I'm in agreement with you, but the board has no jurisdiction. I think at this point, if Mr. Andrews has a particular section of subdivision control that gives the planning board certain authority, then he should provide that to the secretary. I will get permission to just check with council or do some review myself to see if that section of subdivision control applies to this scenario. And then in the meantime, I will also, if you want, I will write to the Ethics Commission and do the one you asked me. The fact that I built Pine Street North,
Well, there's one.
okay?
Did you put a water line down?
Okay, water lines have nothing to do
Well, wait a
about
minute, wait a minute.
town map drainage construction.
Wait,
Why don't you
wait,
just, no, why don't you just send
what
it
I'm
back?
what I'm asking you is, and I don't want to get into all these details,
Yeah.
is there a conflict? That's all.
No. I say no. But I want to be specific, so if I'm gonna do a request,
Right.
all right, I want to be specific with ethics, to make sure that, well, let me say this. In your email to Joanne, when you specify which section of subdivision control this applies, you put the language that you want me to ask ethics. Fair enough?
I don't think it's up to me to tell you what to ask.
I don't
Ask
really-
ethics. You're the one that has to ask whether you have an ethical conflict with what's before the board. That's between you and them.
If you understand the conflict of interest laws, okay, do I have a financial interest in drainage, construction, or whether or not it's laid out properly? The answer to that question is no. And conflict of interest is a financial interest. Okay. Anything else?
The other item that I'm talking about here is straightening out the town maps to show the roads where they belong. That's the main issue of what I'm talking about.
If the road, I don't know how you're gonna straighten out the town map. If you got a previously filed subdivision,
No. Show the map the way the subdivision is, not the way the town maps show Pine Street North connecting to Gold Street. You know personally
yeah.
that it does not.
again, I just don't know what jurisdiction the planning board has,
The
so.
planning board
I'll
has
ask-
jurisdiction over the official maps.
Okay,
That's what I'm talking about.
has the planning board been involved in any other private ways in the last 25 years on
Yes,
the board? Well, which private ways has the planning board been involved in?
we've been involved in many different ones.
Which ones?
I don't have it off the top of my
Okay,
head.
all right. Anything else? Anybody else from the audience?
I think last time I did.
Okay, just identify yourself.
Jessica Calder. I thought there was only 12 people around to be in this meeting at one time. And when it first opened up, it was 18, now we have, I think, 13. And I just asked Charlie, who told me to address the board. So
Okay.
I'd like clarification.
So if we have 13 people, would someone like to leave?
No, it's an open meeting, I want to be here. I
Okay.
have a right to be here.
Okay. Well, we have two options. Okay, no, okay, okay.
What we'll do is possibly solve.
But now you've got more than 6 feet apart, is not in there.
Okay, okay. So to answer your question, we have 12 people, so do you have a question for the board?
You're not verbally asked.
Yeah, you need to have them asked.
Sorry, I was identifying myself before I
Okay.
put this back on.
Okay, do you have a question relative to Pine Street North?
No, I just
Okay,
wanted to ask.
good.
the meeting.
Anybody else in the audience have any questions on Pine Street North? I'm gonna ask that the secretary put it on the agenda for the next meeting, and you're gonna send her an email, and we'll see. And when I say put it on the agenda for the next meeting, the only reason it's gonna be on the agenda is relative to whether the planning board has jurisdiction. That's it. Okay. We agree. Okay. Counselor, is that fine with you?
That's on the very way, so it's, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, that's a good.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, next item on the agenda, excuse me a second. I asked this to be put on. Massachusetts has a complete streets program, and Green Seal Environmental is handling this program for the town. There's approximately $400,000 worth of funds that would be available to the town through our highway department. And I'm hoping that our September 17th meeting, that Green Seal will come in and make a presentation. And I'm hoping that fellow board members will kind of look around town. There are certain areas that need sidewalks in this program, and there is a link that Charlie sent us, and if you follow that up, which I believe this program will cover sidewalks, crosswalks, and that sort of stuff. And we do have areas that need sidewalks, and we got major crosswalk problems at the corner of 58 and 106. So I would hope that everybody would take a few minutes, follow that link, and we will have a presentation on the 17th. Anybody got any questions? Okay. Our next order of business is the concert.
We have a member in the audience that's looking to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I thought you said you didn't have jurisdiction with streets, and I was saying you do.
Jurisdiction on what?
Streets.
We had,
But I thought you told me you didn't.
Okay.
And so I'm confused.
now you got me confused. What are you talking about? We don't have jurisdiction on streets. Just hold on one second, Charlie. We don't have we have jurisdiction on public ways, planning board. And we have a complete streets program. Is that what you're referring to? Complete streets?
You said you had nothing to do with streets, and now you're saying you have to do with streets.
No, I don't know when he said we had nothing to do with streets, so. Charlie?
This is being done as a courtesy planning board. It's a highway department project, but since we like the idea of having departments communicate with each other, the Complete Streets program, the engineering firm that's working with the highway surveyor is doing a presentation with the planning board. So if the planning board has questions about the program, even though they don't have jurisdiction over the program, they'll have an ability to find out more, ask questions, get answers. But in addition, in many cases, the planning board does play a role. Mr. Andrews, in fact, has just pointed out that in many cases, for instance, with subdivisions, that the planning board plays a role in the development of the town, including its street network. So it all depends on the situation. But in this case, this is being done as a courtesy for the planning board.
All right, next order of business is we have the Country Club Estates 40B project, which I understand is continued till September 2nd, based on, I guess, whether or not they're going to be ready to move forward.
We're not sure we can have that hearing, is that what you said?
I'm not sure what they're doing with the 40B, so it's continued until September 2nd with the ZBA, so that's just the notice.
Sorry, I got it, okay.
Okay. I do have one other item that I want to read into the record. It's not on the agenda, but I think it's important to read it in just in case any of the board members. On August 12th, Amy Troop did a public records request, and she wants all emails, letters, correspondence for which Amy L. Troop is the primary subject of the document, and the email, letter, or correspondence is dated April 1st, 2020 to July 2nd, 2020. This request covers all departments, including all employees of all departments, and includes all members of all boards, commissions, and committees. This letter goes on to say that all of us should review our emails to see if anybody, I guess, used Amy Troop's name in any of the emails. This information should be provided to the town administrator by Wednesday, August 26th.
I don't have a copy of that in my file that we were gonna talk about that, and I would actually say that what Robert Day just said about harassment this is another thing of harassment against me.
Okay. We'll note that for the record. All right. And our next item on our agenda is our August 6th, 2020 approval of the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to look at the minutes?
I got them this afternoon late, so I did read some of them, but I moved that I have more time, so I'd like to continue the meeting minutes until the next meeting.
Okay. Did anybody else have any suggestions or comments so that we can get them in?
I didn't have a chance to read them.
Okay, all right. Rick?
Yeah, I think reading word to word, but
Okay. The only thing that I saw, and Gordon can answer this, in the discussion with Mr. Paquette, the road was the last, let me see. We're in discussion, John Paquette, and it's only whether or not it's 13 years or 15 years. My recollection is that subdivision went in 13 years ago, at least that's my recollection. So I'm not gonna be stickler, but I don't know whether it's 13 years or 15 years. So maybe you can shed some light on that.
We'd have to pull the file.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so what I'll do is ask her to put our August 6, 2020 meeting minutes on our next agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, I do not believe we have any correspondence, and I do not believe that we have any bills to pay. So the last order of business is the Andrews versus Halifax case. For those members that aren't aware, I don't know that they received the documentation or the civil complaint, but there's been an additional civil complaint filed in, I think, Plymouth Superior Court, looking for civil damages from various members of the boards, individuals, and the planning board. I reviewed the complaint. I didn't see any amount for damages. I'm a little confused with it, but and it appears that this has got to be the 5th or 6th Andrews versus Halifax or points of litigation that the town's been involved in. Does anybody have anything to say? Just want you to be aware that as planning board members, we were made defendants of the case. Is there any other business we need to discuss before the planning board? If not, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn at 7:28.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All second?
All in favor? 4-0-0. Our next meeting is going to be September 3rd. Thank you.